Everybody's on the call. Okay. The other thing I'm going to say is we have a chapter to read in Where the Red Fern Grows. And after we read today's chapter, we have a quiz on the first 5 chapters. So as long as you've been with me and paying attention, you should be fine. We've been doing the worksheets. You guys have been doing the vocab. So I believe you guys will be fine. It's not like you can necessarily like study for these anyway. It's just pay attention when we're reading the book. So we're going to read today's chapter, and then you will have a quiz on the first 5 chapters. Yes, Ezekiel.
So, will we finish the Red Fern Grows in time for AR? Because I'm almost done with this big.
No, and I told you that from the day we started this that we would not finish it in time for this quarter. I told you all along that this would not be done in time. So no, you don't get any points for it. It will be on your 4th quarter AR, but it will not be on 3rd quarter AR. There's nothing else we're reading in class that you're going to get credit for. I forgot, actually, Read Across America Week. I'm going to back up. We have something today going on called a mystery reader. And usually when we have mystery reader days, that means somebody is showing up to read in our class. But because of COVID, nobody's actually physically coming to our class. But instead, I have a video that somebody's mommy sent me. And I'm going to give you clues about this mommy. And you guys can see if you can guess which mommy it is. Hang on.
It's not my mom. I know that.
All right, whoa talking. Okay. Clue number 1. When I was young, my favorite teacher was Mrs. Smith, and she taught 3rd grade. Every day after lunch, she would read to the class, and that was my favorite part of the day. Clue number 2. Some of you might get it on this one because I'm trying to think if this applies to a couple of you at least. Okay. I have 2 sons, and I love spending time with my family. Some of our favorite things to do are to go bike riding at Grants Trail and hiking at Elephant Rocks. Any guesses?
It's Sam. It's Sam.
Clue number 3.
Samuel.
Now you're
I
going to
know.
know.
I know Sam.
My youngest son is in 4th grade, and my oldest son is in 5th grade. I am a 4th grade reading teacher, but I do not teach at R7.
Yeah, it's Laura.
It's Miss Curly, Sam's mom. So let me post this video. She's reading a book that many of you have probably already heard, but it's always a good one. So let me project her.
Before you even said the first clue, I was like, okay, Sam's suspicious. It's Sam.
Sam's suspicious. All right, let me mute myself, and then I.
Hi, everyone. Today I'm going to share one of my favorite books with you. It's called The Day.
Miss Bat, you're muted.
The Crayons Came Home. It was written by Drew DeWalt and Oliver Jeffers. One day, Duncan and his crayons were happily coloring together when a strange stack of postcards arrived for him in the mail. Dear Duncan, not sure if you remember me. My name is Maroon Crayon. You only colored with me once to draw a scab, but whatever. Anyway, you lost me 2 years ago in the couch. Then your dad sat on me and broke me in half. I never would have survived had Paperclip not nursed me back to health. I'm finally better, so come get me. And can Paperclip come too? He's really holding me together. Sincerely, your marooned crayon, Maroon Crayon. Dear Duncan, no one likes peas. No one even likes the color pea green. So I'm changing my name and running away to see the world. Sincerely, Esteban the Magnificent, the crayon formerly known as pea green. Hi, Duncan. It's me, Neon Red Crayon. Remember that great vacation we had with your family? Remember how we laughed when we drew a picture of your dad's sunburn? Remember dropping me by the hotel pool when you left? Clearly you do not, because I'm still here. How could you miss me? Anyway, after 8 months waiting for you to come get me, I guess I'm walking back. your left behind friend, Neon Red Crayon. Duncan, it's us, yellow and orange. We know we used to argue over which of us was the color of the sun, but guess what? Neither of us wants to be the color of the sun anymore, not since we were left outside and the sun melted us together. You know the real color of the sun? Hot, that's what. We're sorry for arguing. You can make green the sun for all we care. Just bring us home. Your not so sunny friends, yellow and orange. Hey, Duncan, I'm sure you don't recognize me after the horrors I've been through. I think I was tan crayon or maybe burnt sienna. I don't know. I can't tell anymore. Have you ever been eaten by a dog and puked up on the living room rug? Because I have. I have been eaten by a dog and puked up on the rug. Duncan, and it's not pretty. Not pretty at all. I'm more carpet fuzz than crayon now. Can you please bring me back? Your undigestible friend, tan, or possibly burnt sienna crayon. Dearest Duncan, could you please open the front door? I still need to see the world. Sincerely, Esteban the Magnificent. Hey, Duncan, remember last Halloween we told your little brother there was a ghost under the basement stairs? Then we drew all that scary stuff on the wall? Sure was funny when he ran screaming, right? But it wasn't so funny when you forgot to take me out of the basement. Please come get me. I'm kind of terribly horrified. Your scared friend, glow-in-the-dark crayon. Dear Duncan, looks like I'm almost home. Been through China, Canada, and France, I think. Just crossing New Jersey by camel now. New Jersey has giant pyramids, right? See you soon, Neon Red Crayon. P.S. Next stop, the North Pole, I think. Duncan, does page 8 of Pirate Island ring a bell? Kind of a big payday for Captain Greenbeard there, don't you think? And no bronze or silver in that pile, huh? I told you it'd make me blunt if you colored each coin individually, but did you listen? No. I also told you those stupid crayon sharpeners never work. Did you listen to that? Also, no. Now I can't color anything at all. Your pointless friend, Gold Crayon. Pencil says I had to write it for him. And Gold says, this is not fun for me either, you know. Dear Duncan, I've seen the world. It's rainy. I'm coming back. Esteban the Magnificent. Hi, Duncan. You're probably wondering why my head is stuck to your sock. A question I ask myself every day. Well, it's because last week you left me in your pocket and I ended up in the dryer. I landed on your sock and now he's stuck to my head. Can you please come get me? Also, why does everything you wear still smell even after it's washed? Your stinky, socky, stucky on head buddy, Turquoise Crayon. P.S. Sock says hi. Dear Mr. Duncan, I know I'm not your crayon. I belong to your baby brother, but I can't take him anymore. In the last week alone, he's bitten the top of my head, put me in the cat's nose, drawn on the wall, and tried to color garbage with me. The worst part is he's a terrible artist. I can't tell what his drawings are. Donkeys? Monkeys? Donkey monkeys? Picasso said every child is an artist, but I don't know. I don't think he met your brother. Please rescue me. Your desperate friend, Big Chunky Toddler Crayon. Duncan, greetings from the Amazon rainforest. Making great time. I think I'm almost home. Neon Red Crayon. Hello, Duncan. It's me, Brown Crayon. You know exactly why I ran away, buddy. Everyone thinks I get all the great coloring jobs. Candy bars, puppies, ponies. Lucky me, right? But they don't know what else you used me to color, do they? I didn't think so. The rest of that drawing was great, but did it really need that final brown scribble? I'll come back, but please let's stick to candy bars, okay? Your very embarrassed friend, Brown Crayon. The title of Duncan's picture is Bear Goes in the Woods. Duncan was sad to learn of all the crayons he'd lost, forgotten, broken, or neglected over the years. So he ran around gathering them up. But Duncan's crayons were all so damaged and differently shaped than they used to be that they no longer fit in the crayon box. So Duncan had an idea. He built a place where each crayon would always feel at home. And he named it the Crayon Fort. And here's Neon Red talking to Esteban the Magnificent. And then in Cleveland, I got to hike the Great Wall of China. I hope you enjoyed the book.
The Great Wall of China is in China.
Yeah, the Great Wall of China is actually in China,
not
Cleveland, which is in Ohio. All right, lights back on, and we are. Thank you, Sam. Tell your mama I said thank you. I like that book. I have it at home too. Ooh, let there be light. Okay, so now we are going to get busy with chapter 5 of Red Fern. Here we go. When we left off, he had been he'd gone to town to get his puppies, Taliqua, and he had seen some kids on a playground at school, and he tried to go down the slide. Did he do it correctly?
No.
No, he kind of, what happened?
He flew out at the end. And
He like flew out the end.
And then he landed on like his back or something.
He landed, I think, on his belly, right? Because it said he came out backwards with his feet all in the air, and then he landed on his belly. And
It
then
knocked the wind out of him.
What chapter
knocked
are
the
we
wind
on?
out of him. Yeah, we're about to start chapter 5. And there was a little old lady gardening down the street that was laughing at him. All right, here we go. Chapter 5. On arriving at the depot, which a depot is like a big, like, it was one of our vocab words, like a big, like, store. Think about like Home Depot,
Yes.
big store. Also, the train depot is where like the trains come. So the depot here is like a little store, but it's also like the place where everybody comes to get everything. Okay, so like mail, grocery, everything. Really quick. On arriving at the depot, my nerve failed me. I was afraid to go in. I didn't know what I was scared of, but I was scared. Before going around to the front, I peeked in a window. The station master was in his office looking at some papers. He was wearing a funny little cap that had no top in it. He looked friendly enough, but I still couldn't muster up enough courage to go in. I cocked my ear to see if I could hear puppies crying, but could hear nothing. A bird started chirping. It was a yellow canary in a cage. The station master walked over and gave it some water. I thought, anyone that is kind to birds surely wouldn't be mean to a boy. With my courage built up, I walked around to the front and eased myself past the office. He glanced at me and turned back to the papers. I walked clear around the depot and again walked slowly past the office. Glancing from the corner of my eye, I saw the station master looking at me and smiling. He opened the door and came out on the platform. I stopped and leaned against the building. Yawning and stretching his arms, he said, "It sure is hot today. Doesn't look like it's ever going to rain." I looked up at the sky and I said, "Yes, sir, it is hot, and we sure could do with a good rain. We need one bad up where I come from." He asked me where I lived, and I told him up the river a ways. "You know," he said, "I have some puppies in there for a boy that lives up on the river. His name is Billy Coleman. I know his dad, but never seen the boy. I figured he would be in after them today." On hearing this remark, my heart jumped clear up in my throat. I thought surely it was going to hop right out onto the depot platform. I looked up and tried to tell him who I was, but something went wrong. When the words finally came out, they sounded like the squeaky old pulley on our well that Mama drew up a bucket of water from. I could see a twinkle in the station master's eyes. He come over and laid his hand on my shoulder. In a friendly voice, he said, "So, you're Billy Coleman. How's your dad?" I told him Papa was fine and handed him the slip my grandpa had given me. "They are fine-looking pups," he said. "You'll have to go around to the freight door." I'm sure my feet never touched the ground as I flew around the building. He unlocked the door and I stepped in looking for my dogs. I couldn't see anything but boxes, barrels, old trunks, and some rolls of barbed wire. The kindly station master walked over to one of the boxes. "Do you want box and all?" he asked. I told him I didn't want the box. All I wanted was the dogs. Well, how are you going to carry them? He asked. I think they're a little too young to follow. I held out my gunny sack. He looked at me and looked at the sack. Chuckling, he said, well, I guess dogs can be carried that way, same as anything else, but we'll have to cut a couple of holes to stick their heads through so that they won't smother. Getting a claw hammer, he started tearing off the top of the box. As nails gave way and boards splintered, I heard several puppy whimpers. I didn't walk over. I just stood and waited. After what seemed like hours, the box was open. He reached in, lifted the pups out, and set them down on the floor. Well, there they are, he said. What do you think of them? I didn't answer. I couldn't. All I could do was stare at them. They seemed to be blinded by the light and kept blinking their eyes. One sat down on his little rear and started crying. The other one was waddling around and whimpering. Yeah, Zeke.
So I think like maybe I don't know anymore, but what if the puppies ran away? That would I feel like that would be something that might happen.
That would be so sad. Hopefully they don't. Let's find out. I wanted so much to step over and pick them up. Several times I tried to move my feet, but they seemed to be nailed to the floor. I knew the pups were mine, all mine, yet I couldn't move. My heart started acting like a drunk grasshopper. I tried to swallow and couldn't. My Adam's apple wouldn't work. One pup started my way. I held my breath. On he came until I felt a scratchy little foot on mine. The other pup followed. A warm puppy tongue caressed my sore foot. I heard the station master say, "They already know you." I knelt down and gathered them in my arms. I buried my face between their wiggling bodies and cried. The station master, sensing something more than just two dogs and a boy, waited in silence. Rising with the two pups held close to my chest, I asked if I owed anything. He said, "There's a small feed bill, but I'll take care of it. It's not much anyway." Taking his knife, he cut 2 slits in the sack. He put the pups in and worked their heads through the holes. As he handed the sack to me, he said, "Well, there you are. Goodbye and good hunting." Walking down the street toward town, I thought, now maybe the people won't stare at me when they see what I've got. After all, not every boy owns 2 good hounds. Turning the corner onto the main street, I threw out my chest. I hadn't gone far before I realized that the reception I got wasn't what I thought it would be. People began to stop and stare. Some even snickered. I couldn't understand why they were staring. Surely it couldn't be at the 2 beautiful hound pups sticking out of the gunny sack. Thinking that maybe I had a hole in the seat of my britches, I looked over to my reflection in a plate glass window. I craned my neck for a better view of my rear. I could see a patch there all right, and a few threadbare spots, but no whiteness was showing through. I figured that the people were just jealous because they didn't have 2 good hounds. I saw a drunk coming. He was staggering all over the street. Just as he was passing me by, I heard him stop. As I looked back, I saw he was staring wide-eyed at my sack. Closing his eyes, he rubbed them with his hands. Opening them again, he stared. Shaking his head, he staggered on down the street. All around, people began to roar with laughter. Someone shouted, "What's the matter, John? You seeing things today?" I hurried on, wanting to get away from the stares and the snickers. It wouldn't have happened again in 100 years, but there they came, the same 2 old women I had met before. We stopped and had another glaring fight. One said, "I declare." The other one snorted, "Well, I never." What does that mean? They're saying, "I declare," and "well, I never." What are they meaning? Are they happy to see a boy
No.
with no shoes and puppies sticking out of a bag?
No. You're not happy.
No. Yeah. They're kind of like, ugh, that's not right.
Why can't they leave him alone?
Yeah, well, that's Maggie says, why can't they leave him alone? That's a good question. I don't know. All right. My face burned. I couldn't take any more. After all, a man can stand so much and no more. In a loud voice, I said, "You may have these people fooled with these expensive-looking feathers in your hats, but I know what they are. They're goose feathers painted with iodine." One started to say something, but her words were drowned out by the roaring laughter from all around. Gathering up their long skirts, they swished on down the street. All around me, people began to shout questions and laugh. One wanted to know if I had the mother in the sack. Storekeeper stepped out and gawked. I could see the end of the street, but it looked as if it were 100 miles away. My face was as red as a fox's tail. I ducked my head, tightened my grip on the sack, and walked on. Why do you think everybody's making fun of him walking down the street with 2 pups in the bag? Fiona?
I'm thinking because of the fact he's in last that the entire time that he's been in the town. So now they're probably thinking that he's like faking puppies, or he's like acting like he got them, but really they're like fake. And he's just
Well, the puppies' heads are sticking out of the bag.
yeah, but they're probably thinking that they're like fake.
Like they're not actually his.
Okay, maybe they are thinking the puppies aren't his.
Because like it just said they thought that it was just a couple of goose feathers.
No,
No, the feathers in the lady's hat. Those ladies that are making fun of him had feathers in their hat. Josie, what do you think? Why are all these people making fun of him?
It's probably because he looks a lot different than all of them. And like, ordinary people like you and me, like, I don't think we would stick puppies in a sack and then walk home. And it's just kind of not like the other people in the town.
Right. He definitely not like back to what it was in the beginning when he first got to town. He doesn't look anything like them. They have on nice, clean clothes. He's got on worn out overalls, bare feet that are all cut up. And now he's walking down the street with like a big old sack. Like I picture like a big old like Santa Claus looking sack, right? With just little 2 puppy heads just stuck out of it.
I'm picturing him.
That has to look bizarre.
Miss Fab.
And like Jason said, I'd put it on a leash or
Miss Fab.
they had collars and leashes. He doesn't have one because he's poor. But yeah, they have collars and leashes back then.
When I saw that, I was picturing like it's like a brownish sack with
I'm thinking of a potato sack.
Yeah, like a
sack.
brown potato sack type
And
thing.
then there's 2 holes, and then there's like an area where you can hold it, and the heads are just sticking out. But they're both
Yeah, it's
there.
just like 2 little puppy heads sticking out of the sack. It's got to be really odd because nowadays, if we had 2 brand new puppies, we have like the little pet carrier boxes. Well, some of them are bigger, but you've got the pet carrier boxes that you put them in, or at least you would have a collar and a leash on them. And they did have collar and leashes back then. I don't think they had the pet carrier boxes back then, but you would have put a collar and leash. But the problem is he can't put a collar and leash on him. He had to walk for like 2 days to get there, right? Our brand new baby puppy's going to be able to walk through
No.
for 2 days,
And
probably.
they're not fully grown to walk yet. It takes about.
It takes a while. Yeah, when puppies are born, they're like baby humans. They can't walk right away and do all of that. So
Miss Fab.
no, they're clearly old enough to be away from their mother, but
Miss
they're
Fab.
still pups. Yeah, Jason.
You wanna know what I would do to get there faster? Like on the way there,
How are they still puppies though?
if I don't know if these were a thing back then, like roller skates.
They didn't have. I
Because
don't
if
know.
they did, I would like have them on, but on the way there, I'd grab onto cars.
He wasn't going on a road. Remember, they don't have
Oh, yeah.
roads back then. They had dirt roads, but he was going as the crow flies, which means he was just walking through fields. He was taking like the straight path there. So he was just walking through fields and forests and all kinds of places to get there. He wasn't following the road because that would have taken longer.
'Cause, like, I remember
Why are they still puppies? He originally looked for them 2 years ago because it's a breeder. They're constantly having new puppies be born. Is where he got them from.
But Miss Fab.
All right, we're going to continue so you guys have time for your quiz.
I got that from like Back
to the Future, yeah.
Future in the
I
beginning.
know. Okay. All right. He ducked his head, tightened, and walked on. I don't know where they came from, but like chickens coming home to roost, they flocked around me. Most of them were about my age. Some were a little bigger, some smaller. They ganged around me, screaming and yelling. They started clapping their hands and chanting, "The dog boy has come to town. The dog boy has come to town." My heart burst. Tears came rolling. The day I had waited for so long had turned black and ugly. The leader of the gang was about my size. He had a dirty, freckled face, and his 2 front teeth were missing. I suppose he'd lost them in a back alley fight. His shocky yellow sunburned hair bobbed up and down as he skipped and jumped to the rhythm of the Dog Boy song. He wore a pair of cowboy boots. They were 2 sizes too big for him, no doubt handed down by an older brother. He stomped on my right foot. He's got a cowboy boot on and he just stomped on a barefoot. I looked down and saw a drop of blood ooze out from under my broken nail. It hurt like the dickens, but I gritted my teeth and walked on. Freckleface pulled the ear of my little girl pup. I heard her painful cry. That was too much. I hadn't worked 2 long, hard years for my pups to have some freckle-faced punk pull their ears. Swinging the sack from my shoulder, I walked over and set it down in a doorway. As I turned around to face the mob, I doubled up my fist and took a Jack Dempsey stance. This is like that kind of thing. Okay. Freckleface said, "So you want to fight?" He came in swinging. I reached way back in Arkansas somewhere. By the time my fist had traveled all the way down to the Cherokee Strip, there was a lot of power behind it. Smack on the end of Freck's nose, it exploded. With a loud grunt, he sat down in the dusty street. Grabbing his nose in both hands, he started rocking and moaning. I saw the blood squeeze out between his fingers. Another one sailed in. He didn't want to fight. He wanted to wrestle. He stuck a finger in my mouth. I ground down. Shaking his hand and yelling like the hoot owls were after him, he ran across the street. Another one bored in. I aimed for his eye, but my aim was a little low. It caught him in the Adam's apple. A sick look came over his face. Bending over, croaking like a bullfrog that had been caught by a water moccasin, he started going around in a circle. But there were too many of them. By sheer weight and numbers, they pulled me down. I managed to twist over on my stomach and buried my face in my arms. I could feel them beating and kicking my body. All at once, the beating stopped. I heard loud cries from the gang. Turning over on my back, I was just in time to see the big marshal plant a number 12 boot in the seat of the last kid. I just knew I was next. I wondered if he'd kick me while I was down. I lay where I was. He started toward me. I closed my eyes. I felt a hand as big as an anvil clamp on my shoulder. I thought, he's going to stand me up and then knock me down. He raised me to a sitting position. His deep, friendly voice said, "Are you all right, son?" I opened my eyes, and there was a smile on his wide, rugged face. In a choking voice, I said, "Yes, sir, I'm all right." He helped me to my feet. His big hands started brushing the dust from my clothes. "Those kids are pretty tough, son," he said, "but they're really not bad. They'll grow up someday." "Marshal," I said, "I wouldn't have fought them, but they pulled my pup's ears." He looked over to my sack. One pup had worked its way almost out through the hole. The other one's head and 2 little paws were sticking out. Both of them were whimpering. A smile spread all over the big marshal's face. "So that's what started the fight," he said. Walking over, he knelt down and started petting the pups. "They're fine-looking dogs," he said. "Where'd you get them?" I told him I'd ordered them from Kentucky. "What'd they cost you?" he asked. $40, I said. He asked if my father had bought them for me. "No," I said, "I bought them myself." He asked where I'd got the money. "I worked and saved it," I said. "Takes a long time to save $40, he said. "Yes," he said. "Took me 2 years." 2 years? I saw an outraged look come over the marshal's face. Reaching up, he pushed his hat back. He glanced up and down the street. I heard him mutter, "There is not a one in that bunch with that kind of grit." What does that mean? He was talking about the boys that walked away. There's not a one of them in that bunch that has that kind of grit. What does that mean? Jason, I saw your hand first.
Like, they wouldn't be able to save up for 2 years. They'd be spending their money before they got $20 or $10.
Right. Yeah. Jason said they wouldn't be able to save for that long. As soon as they got a little of something, they would spend it. So they don't have that grit. They don't have that ability to like dig in and do like honest work. Ezekiel.
So like grit is like being on the grind, like you really want it and be like determined. And the kids like they're like he's saying they would be too lazy to like stay with it that long.
Right, exactly.
Like,
Sean.
He really, really wants it. My brother works at Burger King, and so he's saving up for a car.
All right. So Sean said he can make a connection and that his brother's working at Burger King and saving up to buy a car. So that's a very similar situation. So your brother's got some grit. He's like hanging in there, getting it done at Burger King.
I'm not done yet.
Oh, you're not done yet. He's not saving his money from Burger King.
So,
Uh-oh.
He got $1,000 already.
He got what?
$1,000.
What? He's got $1,000 already. All right.
And now he wants to buy a moped.
Now he wants to buy a moped. Is that a smart choice for a vehicle
No,
to actually
What's a
get you where
moped?
you need to go?
for like $550.
So he wants to spend half his money, $500 something on a moped.
What's a myth?
Moped's like a little baby motorcycle type thing, but not even. It's not even like a motorcycle. It's like a fancy scooter that you ride on and you don't stand on. Okay, here we go. We gotta keep going. Okay, picking up my sack, I said, "Thanks for helping me out. I guess I'd better be heading for home." He asked where I live, and I said up the river away. "Well, you've got time for a bottle of pop before you go, haven't you?" I started to say no, but looking at his big friendly smile, I smiled back and I said, I guess I have. Walking into a general store, the marshal went over to a large red box and pulled back the lid. He asked what kind I wanted. I'd never had a bottle of pop in my life, and I didn't know what to say. Seeing my hesitation, he said, "The strawberry looks pretty good." He's never had soda. I said that'd be fine. The cool pop felt wonderful to my hot, dry throat. My dark little world had brightened up again. I had my pups, and I'd found a wonderful friend. I knew that the stories I'd heard about marshals weren't true. Never again would I be scared when I saw one. Back out on the street, I shook hands with the marshal, saying as I did, "If you're ever up in my part of the country, come over and see me. You can find our place by asking at my grandfather's store." "Store?" he said. "Why, the only store upriver's about 30 miles from here." "Yeah," I said, "that's my grandpa's place." He asked if I was afoot walking. "Yes," I said. "You won't make it tonight," he said, "will you?" "No, I intend to camp out somewhere." I saw he was bothered. "I'll be all right," I said. "I'm not scared of the mountains." He looked at me and at my pups. Taking off his hat, he scratched his head. Chuckling deep down in his barrel-like chest, he said, "Yes, I guess you will be all right. Well, goodbye and good luck, and if you're ever in town again, look me up." From far down the street, I looked back. The marshal was still standing where I'd left him. He waved his hand, and I waved back. On the outskirts of town, I stopped and picked up a can and my provisions. I hadn't gone far before I realized that I'd undertaken a tough job. The sack became heavier and heavier. For a while, my pups cried and whimpered. They had long since pulled their heads back in the sack. I would peek in at them every once in a while. They were doing all right, curled up in two little round balls on my bundles. They were fast asleep. Deep in the heart of the Sparrowhawk Mountains, night overtook me. There in a cave with a stream close by, I put up for the night. Taking my pups and bundles from the gunny sack, I used it to gather leaves to make us a bed. My pups followed me on every trip, whimpering and crying, tumbling and falling over sticks and rocks. After the bed was made, I built a fire. In a can of water from the mountain stream, I boiled 3 eggs. Next, I boiled half the remaining salt pork. Cutting the meat up in small pieces, I fed it to my pups. Each of us had a piece of candy for dessert. My pups enjoyed the candy. With their needle-sharp puppy teeth, they gnawed and worried with it until it was melted away. While they were busy playing, I dragged up several large timbers and built a fire which would last for hours. In a short time, the cave grew warm and comfortable from the heat. The leaves were soft and felt good to my tired body and sore feet. As I lay stretched out, my pups crawled all over me. I played with them. They would waddle up to the front of the cave, look at the fire, and come scampering back to roll and play in the soft leaves. I noticed the boy dog was much larger than the girl dog. He was a deeper red in color. His chest was broad and solid. His puppy muscles knotted and rippled under the velvety skin. He was different in every way. He would go closer to the fire. I saw right away he was bold and aggressive. Once he went around the fire and ventured out into the darkness. I waited to see if he'd come back. He came wobbling to the mouth of the cave, but hesitated there. He made several attempts to come back, but the flames were leaping higher by the minute. The space between the fire and the wall of the cave was much hotter than what he had ventured out. Whimpering and crying, he kept trying to get around the fire. I said not a word, just watched. Puppy though he was, he did something which brought a smile to my face. Getting as close as he could to the side of the cave, he turned his rear to the fire. Hopping sideways, yipping at every jump, he made it through the heat and sailed into the pile of leaves. He had had enough. Curling up in a ball close to me, he went to sleep. The girl pup was small and timid. Her legs and body were short. Her head was small and delicate. She must have been a runt in the litter. I didn't have to look twice to see that what she lacked in power, she made up for in brains. She was a much smarter dog than the boy dog, more sure of herself, more cautious. I knew when the trail became tough, she would be the one to unravel it. I knew I had a wonderful combination. In my dogs, I had not only the power, but the brains along with it. I was a tired boy. My legs were stiff and my feet sore and throbbing. My shoulders were red and raw from the weight of the sack. I covered my pups up in leaves and moved my body as close to them as I could. I knew as night wore on and the fire died down, the chill would come. Tired but happy, I fell asleep. Yeah, Jason?
Now that I heard him talking about it over his sack, the whole thing of how I pictured the sack just changed. Now I picture it like kind of how I said it, but now I'm picturing that there ain't a little way you can like a handle thing. It's like you just grab it together, and then now he was holding it like that. That's how
Yeah. It's just kind of like a big. It doesn't. I don't think the bag has a handle on it. I think it's like just like a big tall sack, and he just holds it. Yeah, shut at the top.
Yeah, now I'm picturing it like that over his back, and then he holding it like this.
Okay.
That's how I'm picturing it now.
We have got to keep reading. I see a couple of hands up, but we've got to keep reading. Okay, guys. Okay.
I was wondering.
Okay. As the night wore on, and the fire died down, the chill would come. Tired but happy, I fell asleep. Along in the silent hours of night, I was awakened. I opened my eyes but didn't move. I lay and listened, trying to figure out what it was that had aroused me. At first, I thought one of my pups had awakened me by moving and whimpering. I discarded this thought, for I could see that they were both fast asleep. I decided it was my imagination working. My fire had burned down, leaving only a glowing red body of coals. The cave was dark and silent. Chill from the night had crept in. I was on the point of getting up to rebuild my fire when I heard what had awakened me. At first, I thought it was a woman screaming. I listened, and my heart began to pound. I could feel the strain all over my body as my nerves grew tighter and tighter. It came again, closer this time. The high pitch of the scream shattered the silence of the quiet night. The sound seemed to be all around us. It screamed its way into the cave and rang like a blacksmith's anvil against the rock walls. The blood froze in my veins. I was terrified. Although I had never heard one, I knew what it was. It was the scream of a mountain lion.
Oh dear. That's what I was going to say, because since he was in the mountain.
He's in the mountains, yep.
At first,
Now he's in a cave and there's a fire at the opening of the cave, so we'll see what happens. The big cat screamed again. Leaves boiled and stirred where my pups were. In the reflection of the glowing coals, I could see that one was sitting up. It was the boy dog. A leaf had become entangled in the fuzzy hair of a floppy ear. The ear flicked and the leaf dropped. Again, the hellish scream rang out over the mountains. Leaves flew as my pup left the bed. I jumped up and tried to call him back. Reaching the mouth of the cave, he stopped. Raising a small red head high in the air, he bawled his challenge to the devil cat. The bawl must have scared him as much as it had startled me. He came tearing back. The tiny hairs on his back were standing on end. My father had told me lions were scared of fire. I started throwing on more wood. I was glad I'd dragged up a good supply while making camp. Hearing a noise from the bed, I looked back. The girl pup, hearing the commotion, had gotten up and joined the boy dog. They were sitting side by side with their bodies stiff and rigid, their beady little eyes bored into the darkness beyond the cave. The moist tips of their black noses wiggled and twisted as if trying to catch a scent. What I saw in my pups gave me courage. My knees quit shaking and my heart stopped pounding. I figured the lion had scented my pups. The more I thought about anything harming them, the madder I got. I was ready to die for my dogs.
Oh, jeez.
Every time the big cat screamed, the boy dog would run to the mouth of the cave and bawl back at him. I started whooping and throwing rocks down the mountainside, hoping to scare the lion away. Through the long hours of the night, I kept this up. The lion prowled around us, screaming and growling, first on the right, then on the left, and above and below. In the wee hours of the morning, he gave up and left to stalk other parts of the mountains. I'm sure he thought he didn't stand a chance against two vicious hounds and a big hunter. Are they two vicious hounds and a big hunter? Too little. Too little. All right, guys. So
they got a strong.
We don't have a whole lot of time, but here's what I have. Nobody leave the call yet. I'm going to push back math a little bit to give you time to take this quiz for reading. Is everybody okay with that? Can we start math at I'll give you guys a good half hour at 9:20. Is everybody okay with coming back at 9:20 for math? That gives you a half hour to work on your test. Lucas, Cam, you good with that? 9:20 for math? Yeah, Grace?
Miss Beckett gave you the paper that I did for math
for today.
Yeah, so you're good for math, Grace, because yeah, you already did the work. I already have it. She gave it to
Is
me,
it
so
okay
I
if
have
I
the
just
worksheet.
join anyway?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're going to be practicing some of the problems again. So yeah, absolutely.
Mr.
Hang on, I didn't see what you guys said.
Cam raised.
Cam, all good. Lucas, are you there? Are you good to get on at 9:20 for math instead?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So plan to be on in a half hour, and that gives you time to work on your reading quiz. And I'll see you then. Bye, guys.
Miss Beth, Cam raised her hand.
Oh, Cam, did you have your hand raised? Go ahead.
I just want to ask you a quick question. So I know